Good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you for joining another session of the Dematic Real-Time Logistics webinar series. The intention of these webinars is to share information on technologies, solutions, and trends in the market or with business that we believe apply to companies in the supply chain. Today's webinar is the second in our three-part series, Android in the Warehouse, What Does It Mean and What is the Opportunity? Today, we're hearing from Honeywell on their view of Android and what it means for supply chain companies. The third webinar is this Friday on July 20th with Avanti, and they're going to really talk about their solution, which is really about putting some of the theory to practice and building solutions. You know, there is a bit of a technology evolution, maybe a revolution happening that is really being driven by the end of support of Windows CE. It's a bit broader than that, but to keep it manageable, from a conversation point of view, we'll use that soundbite. So what does it mean for you and why do you care? Well, the majority of the people that are operating CE terminals in the market will be impacted. There are, and simply by the technology that you bought at the time that it was available. There are approximately 10 million terminals in the marketplace running CE. Obviously, Australia, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia has a subset, but still a large subset of that. More specifically, and to the topic we're talking about today, 95% of the terminals in warehousing and manufacturing, predominantly in distribution centers, are CE-based. My name is Brian Lang, and I work for the Dematic Real-Time Logistics team. Joining me today from Honeywell is Freddie Pham. Freddie is the Product Marketing Manager for Honeywell Safety and Product Solutions in Asia Pacific, and is responsible for leading enterprise mobility strategic product planning and product lifecycle management, as well as go-to-market strategies across the region. Good morning, Freddie. Just some housekeeping before we start. The webinar will run for approximately 45 minutes. There is a lot of material to go through and some juicy bits are at the end, so hopefully you can hang on through the whole session. If you have any questions, please enter them in the chat box on your screen on the side, and we'll attempt to answer the questions at the end of the session. If we look at the challenge with the move from Windows CE to Android, you know, it may be best defined by their definitions and their history. Windows CE is based on Microsoft's Windows operating system, but is designed for including and embedding in mobile and other space-constrained devices. Android, on the other hand, is a mobile operating system primarily designed for touchscreen mobile devices such as smartphones and tablets. Versions of Android include Lollipop, Marshmallow, Nougat, Oreo. You know, in summary, Android comes from a very, very different starting point and has a different strategy on version management, and this is causing both a challenge and an opportunity. What I'd like to do now is hand it over to Freddie and let him take you through Honeywell's approach to Android and what it means and what the opportunity is.
Thanks, Brian. So as Brian mentioned, I'm the enterprise mobility lead for Honeywell in Asia Pac, and I drive the whole product management piece for the Asia Pac itself. Just to take note also, I work very closely with the engineering team and work very closely with customers to identify what products to go to market and how to design them to suit our customers' needs pertaining to their requirements itself. So the agenda that I'm starting is basically with the OS trends, what we're seeing so far, and then the options that's available to you moving forward. And of course, our answer to Android, you know, in the enterprise world, which is Mobility Edge, which I'll dive much deeper in terms of that piece itself. So really, in terms of the OS portion, what we've seen so far from Honeywell has been for past 2 years have been quite a rough road for a lot of our customers, um, namely because there are options, various options that's provided to them, Android, Windows, and iOS. But yet shown for past 2 years, majority of customers are leaning towards Android operating system, transiting from the legacy Windows embedded handheld solutions. So as you can see over here as well, we do have the Windows 10 option, which we have not seen much of adoption from customers, mainly because I think from a availability standpoint from developers and from products, it's not as rampant in terms of Android itself. So we're seeing a lot of move to Android. Now, as we move into Android space for the enterprise world, it does there are a few things that we need to take note, mainly because Android, as Brian has pointed out earlier on, is a consumer operating system. It was derived from that mindset and from that strategic direction, and it has slowly evolved and is looking into the Android space, sorry, the enterprise space, and providing that kind of solution for enterprises itself. So that said, one of the key things that from an Android standpoint has fallen short from a consumer standpoint, a consumer-based operating standpoint, is the short support of security patches for every single major version of Android. So as you can see over here, it's basically showing that for every single major version of Android, you have a 3 years life cycle of security patches from Google and from us that we will provide you for the security patches along the way. So after that, there's no more coverage, as you can see at the chart below, after 3 years. But the rugged device, as the enterprise world, we tend to actually have a longer life cycle, extend still, and during that period of time, the next 2 years, there's no coverage for that particular version itself. So we do have that option itself. So in summary, legacy Windows is really coming to the end. There is an option for a lot of our customers, but we need to be mindful in terms of what it entails when we jump into the Android world for the enterprise. And obviously, Honeywell actually has looked into a lot of all these, and our response is basically Mobility Edge itself. So from a customer's challenges standpoint, what we're seeing so far in this market is basically we're seeing a lot of mobile adoption in our customers' environments. I just came back from Australia, and there was a huge talk about skilled labor shortages in Australia itself. In fact, from a Asia Pac standpoint, I'm seeing this major trend across multiple the countries like mature countries like Singapore, Japan, Korea, where skilled labor shortages are there, and they are basically struggling to actually meet the requirements of the labor in the warehouses itself. Fragmented technologies has started to ramp up due to the various technologies that's available in the market, from Windows to Android to iOS, and different form factors of devices that's available. And of course, that comes with security concerns and requirements. Essentially, are one of the biggest challenges that our customers face today. So essentially, in the overall standpoint, we do have a lot of shortcomings in the current offerings in the market space. and we need to address those concerns. But that being said, what are the options moving forward for customers who are planning to move into Android? So there are two options for customers, of which we offer to our customers. One is delayed, and the other one is immediate. So on a delayed approach, customers have lesser risk to operations. That means they will be using very familiar Windows embedded handheld devices like the ones on the left, and transit over to Android later on when they are ready, on the same hardware, so that they have more time to plan the migration resources, and of course to make sure that there's no downtime to our operations itself. From the immediate standpoint, we have customers who have already jumped onto the bandwagon of Android. They have redeveloped their applications, and of course, they want to utilize the full functionality of Android and the hardware offered along the way, especially when we're talking about a modern OS on the latest hardware versus an old OS on the latest hardware. Obviously, the old OS wouldn't be able to utilize the whole features, the full features of the device itself. So we have customers who just jump straight in. They have been planning this for about 2 years, and they are fully utilizing the features and functions of the Android world, and of course the hardware that comes with it. The hardware itself will have specific components which I'll highlight in a short while. So essentially, just moving on, the offering that we have for this device, we call it the CK75, essentially enables our customers to be very, the migration is very seamless from a full keypad based Windows environment to an Android based full keypad. It's much lesser in terms of risks in moving forward, and it's the best bridging option for our customers within the warehouse to move forward. And this device supports cold storage environments as well, with heater components in there. So from that part, Mobility Edge is our answer to the Android world. Essentially, it's a platform, a hardware platform. We re-look into the whole requirements and the challenges that our customers are facing, and essentially redesign the whole platform and include hardware components in there to derive three major pillars from the Mobility Edge piece. The first one is accelerating deployments, helping our customers to ease the deployment of mobility, enterprise mobility in their environments, and to make use of the latest technologies to actually make sure that they optimize their performance in their operations, and of course, they extend the life cycle of the devices and to protect the investments for the devices that's been deployed. So essentially getting a maximum ROI and increasing the uptime of the devices and users, and also accelerating mobile deployments. So in short, there's a whole lot of, I would say, features and functions, benefits for customers, but the key message here on Mobility Edge is to overcome the complexities that our customers face today and in the future in the enterprise world for Android, and to make it better, faster, and less risk, less cost for them. Now, of all the developments and the innovations, it wouldn't have come so far without the key collaboration with three partners, basically ourselves, Qualcomm, and Google, where we drive very close. In fact, the chipset that you're going to see in a short while, it was co-developed with Qualcomm, and Google has to come in and say that this is the chipset that's going to be supporting the Android versions in the future, and more to come, and utilize and powerful enough to actually run other features that is on the Android roadmap in the future. So it is crucial to understand that it is actually both the hardware and software dependent platform solution. So it is a more holistic platform solution for customers in the end. So as I mentioned earlier on, we have this system of module or the chipset. So the whole concept is one single platform, single hardware platform across various devices. As you can see over here, we have 4 devices that we have. We have launched the CT60 December last year. Launched the CN80 in February this year, and recently last month we have announced and launched the CT40 for the retail store. And later part of the year we have the VM1A, which is the Android version of Vega mounts for the warehouse itself. So with the same chipset, as you can see over here, we have derived various form factors for our customers. We do understand that there are various use cases in the environments, but at the same time, it enables us to actually make sure that applications that's been tested on one of the products will be able to run on the other products. Basically, certified ones run all. Right. So that is the main focus, one of the main focus of our Mobility Edge products moving forward itself. So let's dive a little bit deeper in terms of accelerating deployments, optimizing performance, and life cycle. So in the deployment section, we do have multiple components that will help our customers to actually deploy these devices and these devices seamlessly in the environments. Number one is basically the enterprise provisioner and the staging hub. And of course, we do have third-party MDM support to actually drive the deployment of these devices itself. But that being said, the staging hub, one neat feature is that we have the aggregation capability where you can actually download operational intelligence data from these devices. Essentially, data like how many times it dropped, how many times it scanned, how many times it has bad scans, and so on, will be able to download from these staging hub for further analysis of operations. Right, so it's important to note that these are available for customers, and of course, from a piece of being secure, we have made sure that the entire system is fully secure right from the start, from secure boot to full disk encryption. And of course, we do have very neat features like, for example, Android A and B upgrade system, which I'll highlight in detail in a short while. So on the optimizing performance section, we do have features like voice wedge and scan zone from a data captures perspective. So voice wedge is essentially the ability to collect voice data and convert it into values into non-voice aware applications. So instead of scanning a bad barcode and trying to decipher what and manually entering those values, you can say those values into the application itself. So it really saves the user's time to actually interpret those values in and manually typing them in. Scan zone is a floatable button on the screen that allows our users to actually move the button around the screen so that they have a more well-balanced handling of the device moving forward. Now, after that, we have enterprise client packs, and which essentially in the enterprise world, Android do have its own so-called limitations, because on a consumer device, everybody knows how to navigate through a consumer OS, So we really need to lock down the device and make sure that the users have specific access to certain approved applications. We have incorporated a lockdown browser as well, so that if you have a, a web-based application in your environment, you can actually make sure that the users go to just specifically those sites. We also have the terminal emulator, which I'll highlight in a short while. What are the features and functions? We have also incorporated two other exciting features that we believe will help our customers. First is reducing the loss of devices, and second is connected IoT. Reducing loss of devices essentially is derived, or rather achieved by using Bluetooth locationing or beaconing on the devices, and making sure that the users do not lose the devices in the environment. I believe there are some customers who constantly lose devices. The users will normally go into the spare pool and pull out the spare devices and start using them. So this will help to actually reduce that occurrence by making sure that the users are informed, or they can actually go back and find and locate the mobile computer via Bluetooth beaconing. Connected IoT has been a big thing for past, I think, 2 years. There have been much talk about IoT in the warehouse space, and we have actually incorporated the ability to connect to Bluetooth Low Energy sensors and Zigbee connected sensors, so that you can actually start planning your sensor strategy in your warehouses itself moving forward. So on the terminal emulation, as I mentioned earlier on, so we have this solution called Smart TE. It has the capability of doing it's centralized software management, where configurations are pushed out from the host itself, and patches from the host as well. So it's all centralized software management. Great for IT managers to actually manage the deployments and making sure that they can monitor them real time. Ease of implementation, basically we have them pre-licensed and pre-installed in a lot of the devices that's meant for the warehouse. The other part is that it comes with session persistence, where we make sure that it is able to actually stay connected to the warehouse applications. Even though, if there's any connection issues, you can still maintain that connection and re-log in back into the session itself. And last but not least, the modernization mode, which comes available free of charge for customers. Essentially, you can convert from a text-based TE to a graphical TE free of charge, and anytime that you want, you can do that accordingly. So we have incorporated that to actually improve that experience in terms of jumping into the Android world. Within the extended life cycle pillar, we have various components. I just want to talk through just two of them. Number one is the battery runtime maximizer. We have incorporated multiple artificial intelligence components in there. The device basically will be able to learn how it's been used, and it will automatically optimize the way it uses the battery by switching off certain trade-offs, optimizing certain trade-offs between performance and runtime, right? And the user is able to actually set the preference accordingly after a certain period of time, so that you don't need to. So that helps, number one, to prolong batteries. Number two, no downtime, because the runtime is much longer and such. So one of them is actually our CNAT, which I mentioned earlier on, that runs a full shift. Sorry, it runs 24 hours on just one single battery itself with everything on. So it is quite substantial gains in terms of performance and runtime. The other thing is extended availability. We have on the same hardware, we're able to actually offer Android upgrades all the way until Android R. So essentially, we have a long life cycle for that moving forward. So just see how it runs here, right? So majority of our devices are actually launched with Android 7, which is Android N in 2017. These devices are supported to run to Android R, which is 2021. That's planned to release by Google themselves. Every single major version will have a 3 years security support, which essentially is able to actually provide a secure environment for you for next 3 years for every major version. So essentially, these devices, you can upgrade them at your time, non-contractual, and it's free. So that means once it's available on our websites, and you're sure that your applications are able to support the various version, you can actually decide to actually move on to specific versions when you want to move ahead, um, when you're ready, right? More importantly is when you're ready. The other component, as I mentioned earlier on, we have the A and B updating system that allows our users to load in 2 different environments in the device. So for example, the device may be today running on Android N and running your production applications itself. 4 years later, in 2020, you decide to move on to Android Q, which is made available then. And typically, what the current technologies allow you to do is to wipe out the entire device and reload the whole thing. What you can do with the A and B updating system is basically load the Android Q in partition B and reboot into that partition to run for a short period of time to make sure that everything is running smoothly. Obviously, if it's running smoothly, you can continue to use that partition and forget about partition A. Now, if there's anything wrong with the upgrade, you can revert back to A, partition A, to make sure and so that operations are not disrupted from the upgrading exercise, but yet you are assured that there's less risk in moving forward with the various versions. As I mentioned earlier on, Android is a consumer operating system. You definitely have multiple versions every year, and you definitely have made multiple security patches moving forward, um, given that it's so widely used operating system itself. So in Honeywell, we make sure that this is the best way to manage the Android lifecycle for the enterprise world. Now we do have customers who go beyond the device lifecycle, which is basically using them. So and the environment. So we do have an additional 2 years security patches package called the Sentinel package, which is covered under our service contracts itself. So in short, this is the best way to manage the Android lifecycle in the enterprise world moving forward, and we make sure that it's less risk and less cost for you to navigate through the complexities of it. So from that, how does it derive into the best TCO in the market? So we have the red bar, Honeywell, and the blue bar, competitor X itself. So the first year deployment of 1,000 units could range from 1.4 to coming to 1.6 mil. And the second year, obviously, there are some maintenance costs involved, minimal maintenance costs in second year and third year. But as I mentioned earlier on, after the third year, security patches are stopped, and customers, if you want to actually utilize the latest features and functions of Android and moving forward, typically you have to refresh the hardware and software redevelopment and testings across the board. That's a heavy exercise moving forward. Again, let me remind you that Android is not like our legacy Windows where it had been so stable for a number of years. So essentially, it is key to understand the difference. So hardware refreshes will be in view for next 3 to 4 years. Of course, software redevelopments itself. Whereas for Mobility Edge, we support new versions and security patches across and past the 4-year mark, as you saw earlier on, and into the 7-year mark itself. So in short, with our competitors, we're talking about three refresh cycles in a in a 7-year mark. And with us, for Honeywell, we only have 2 refresh cycles, which ultimately brings down the total cost of ownership quite drastically by stretching the the components and the longevity of the operating system support moving forward itself. So those are the main key components of the Mobility Edge. So let's talk about the products that's running on Mobility Edge. The first one is the CN80 in the warehouse. We still incorporate the physical keypads for our customers. We do understand there's a need for physical keypads. There's the new devices with the modern OS. We are incorporating multi-touch capabilities in there, where you have customizable keypads, on-screen keypads, to pull out additional function keys and so on and so forth. It's customizable compared to the legacy Windows devices that has physical keypads. It's limited to whatever that's available there itself. We have incorporated multiple data capture capabilities, as I mentioned earlier on, and capability to locate lost devices and reduce downtime. So on the CN80, we have 2x2 MIMO. Basically, it's a dual antenna device for better coverage of Wi-Fi and within the warehouse itself. We have cold storage environment capability as well, and it comes with a comprehensive time pack, as you saw earlier on. So in short, the CN80 is the ultimate value for the warehouse moving forward with the enterprise. For the Android world. As you can see clearly, it's fully utilizing the latest hardware advancements, technologies, and at the same time extending the OS capability in the years to come for our customers. So the CN80 also comes with a LTE version, and as I mentioned earlier on, we have the CD60, which is a full touch screen. So I won't dive too much into this, but basically it's a dynamic dual for the field mobility space. If you guys are looking at field mobility, it has a faster and more accurate GPS positioning capability. We have 4 GNSS systems in place for these devices, and it's an ultra rugged environment itself with IP65 and 66 rating. And of course, I needed to actually focus on this a bit. Success stories for CD50, which was derived, which CT60 was derived from. We absolutely dominate the e-commerce space and the field mobility and field service space, as well as you can see over here, across the entire region. So some of you from Australia will be able to see some Australian customers like Direct Trade and Kinets here as well. And last but not least, the CD40, the in-store available now. It's a connected retail solution that enables our customers to actually be more productive in the store. We have front-facing speaker for store associates to communicate with each other quite easily, hands-free, and accessories designed for the store itself. So it's quite a neat device for the store. And of course, the end of the year coming up is the Android version of vehicle mount. So just a sneak peek for you guys on the call. For the warehouse, it's going to run on Android O at release and supports all the way until R, as mentioned earlier on. It's on the same Mobility Edge platform. For existing customers of VM1, you will be able to use the smart dock and the full line of accessories that you've been using, so that saves a lot of space. And of course, utilizing the front panel approach, changing out and to make sure that operations are not affected. Obviously, the smart TE that you saw earlier on will be available on the vehicle mount itself. With that, I'll pass it back to Brian for the remaining part of the webinar.
Thanks, Freddie. That was really good. So I guess in summary, you're really moving from a controllable, and I think you said a more stable environment with CE to one of Android, where you really need to proactively manage it from a version point of view, security point of view, hardware point of view. So in summary, where you may not had to, but now you definitely need to be looking, ahead 3, 4, 5 years as to what your strategy is.
Yes.
But it also creates a real opportunity by development of some new tools. So there's a lot of great tools you mentioned, ScanWedge, etc., Find My Device, etc., and then some really, I guess, new hardware platforms just from having an operating system that supports it more, screen-based devices. So I think it creates a real opportunity for people in the warehouse.
Yes.
We do have time for a couple of questions. And I guess, one that came through, it's fairly simple and fairly specific. Do my current terminals stop working after 2020?
Yeah, so after 2020, obviously, any of the operating system, it all comes down to, so it will still continue to run for terminals that's running Windows, legacy Windows. However, there will not be any more software patches to support for customers moving forward. And again, you won't be utilizing the new features that we mentioned on the enterprise world, the Android world. But essentially, it's basically a dead end there for Windows.
Okay. So while they need to look forward, they need to start the migration path. If they're not complete by 2020, they can still run the terminals, but there's no support, so they need to start working through that process. Okay.
Right.
Maybe time for one more, and it's a fairly big subject. Maybe you can cover a couple of key points. What are the key benefits for businesses to migrate over to Android earlier rather than later?
So yeah, that's a very good question. Basically, as highlighted in the content, there are multiple components that we have incorporated on Mobility Edge that enable our customers to move forward and utilize the latest technologies, like better coverage of LTE. You won't get that kind of better coverage on the LTE bands across the world, or even the 802.11 bands with the legacy Windows OS and the old hardware. So moving forward, I think the key benefits for businesses is really to enable them to utilize these latest technologies earlier and dive deeper in terms of connected IoT and analytics itself, which it doesn't exist for. It's hard to achieve in the Windows environment itself. So those are the main benefits. The other one is a reduced user training, which I mentioned earlier on, pertaining to a lack of labor. Essentially, as mentioned, it is a consumer operating system. Everyone's very familiar with the interface. So the workers will be able to actually utilize these devices very easily and shorten the training time so that they can actually start working in a warehouse. So that helps itself.
Okay. And maybe just one other point to that. I think, you know, what comes through and you focused on devices at the end of the presentation is really new form factors, more screen-based, just enabling you to do more with the same device. So not only there's some technical stuff, but I think there's just some real practicality about, you know, choice of device that that you can use.
Yeah.
So in summary, you know, the one thing that we do want to take away, and what we're stating to the customers we speak to, you know, this really is an opportunity for you to design and implement a better business solution. And what I mean by that is if you are in the process of upgrading your devices, whether it's just a forced move to Android early, or your devices are at the end of the life and you need to upgrade them, really stop and take a look at your business process and say, how can I use some of that new technology that's available, new device form factors to re-engineer my business and deliver a better result. You know, if you're looking for some support through that, I definitely know Freddie and his team and the team at Dematic will, you know, happy to sit down and talk to you, look at the devices you're using, look at your processes in your warehouse, and help you design a better solution. So please, if you've got any questions, you can reach out to either. For some more information, and we will send this document out following the webinar, is really just a summary of what makes up the Honeywell Mobility Edge platform. Gives you a really good one-page overview on, you know, all of the features and the functions and benefits of Mobility Edge. So please take some time and read that. And then both on the Honeywell and the Dematic website, there's a lot of information on the new devices that are available and Android. So with that, you know, just I'd like to thank everybody for taking some of their time to attend. Hopefully you found that worthwhile. You know, I think there's a lot of opportunity with the change. Like I said, I'd like to thank Freddie for his time also. So thanks, Freddie. That was very good. And like I said, on Friday, this Friday, the third part in our series with Avanti, and that's really around the tool that they have to help take some of the theory and make it practical with some applications. So again, thanks everybody. I hope you found that worthwhile.